Hey there, EB here. Welcome to the weekly update. Happy Friday to everyone. Looking forward to chatting. A lot has happened this week, both politically, in the P. Diddy trial, as well as sports. Let's just tackle the P. Diddy trial. It is disgusting. It's vulgar. I just can't believe that people who become that successful can lose all touch with civility, reality. Um, I think the prosecution is proving that P. Diddy was part of a racketeering entity where he would utilize the services of his employees as security, traffic women and escorts over state lines, and pay money, use the wires, whether it's telephone or by PayPal or whatever that they're going to show, transferring money to people. I think that he is despicable, and I think that he ultimately would be convicted. But I thought it was hilarious that at the end of this week, the testimony was that he is not as well endowed as one would think, and that they called it a little Tootsie Roll, his member. So I think that he will be convicted, and the sooner this trial gets over, the better, and the sooner that he gets out of the public discourse, the better. Let's talk about some of the pardons that President Trump has given in the last week. Let me say that every single president has given pardons, controversial pardons, to individuals that have not fully served their sentences, and given pardons because something was promised to a president or a friend. The presidential power is a plenary power under the Constitution. It cannot be questioned. It cannot be challenged. I think if there is a bribe, though, that would be an illegal thing. But presidents give pardons all the time. President Clinton gave one to the rich guy who was a tax cheat living in Switzerland at the time. It was a very controversial pardon. Obviously, Biden pardoned his family, and a lot of the people in the January 6th committee and all around him. That was a little, not the January 6th committee, but the pardon of his family and Hunter Biden was a little bit much after he said he wasn't going to do it. But President Trump clearly is sending messages. And the reason he's doing this is because Ed Martin, who was the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia and didn't get appointed, he now appointed Jean Pirro, who is a former judge and a Westchester, New York prosecutor. She's the now interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. Ed Martin was put in the Justice Department to deal with the weaponization of government department as well as the pardon department. And he said anybody who's MAGA related is going to be pardoned. And we've already talked at length about how disappointed many people, me included, that the January 6th convicted people were pardoned wholesale all the way across, even the people who pled guilty, even the people who were convicted. Obviously, there were some people that should probably be pardoned, but not the people who orchestrated this event. Trump pardoned the reality TV husband and wife Chrisleys, the Chrisleys Know Best or whatever, that show. They had built $30 million from banks and committed fraud and bankruptcy. They didn't repay these loans. They were obtained fraudulently. Money that they made on their television show didn't go back to paying off these loans. They were justly convicted, and Mr. Chrisley got 12 years and the wife got 7 years. He's serving his time in Florida. She was serving his time in Kentucky. Trump, because their daughter spoke at the Republican National Convention and is a big MAGA supporter, they were given a pardon. They only did a year and a half or 2 years of their sentence, I think a year of their sentence, and not sure that they're worthy of getting it, especially when they built the banks and taxpayers and out of $30 million, but he did. He also pardoned a tax cheat who was duly convicted of not paying taxes on $4 million because his mother paid $1 million to have dinner with Trump a week ago. And that is, it can't be denied. She paid $1 million to have one of those special dinners with him, and the next day he was pardoned. Trump is considering pardoning the people that were convicted of threatening the life to assassinate Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. There's no reason these people should be dismissed, pardoned. They've done everything wrong, took the law into their own hands. She didn't do anything that would be worthy of death, but yet Trump is considering pardoning them. So this guy, Ed Martin, who represented a lot of the January 6th convicted people, said anybody MAGA related is going to receive a pardon or a recommendation that a pardon be given. The Senate won't pass, I believe, the big, beautiful bill that was passed last week by the House. It's going to add $20 trillion to the national debt over 10 years. Now, Republicans used to stand for we don't like debt, we don't like deficits, and they only say that when they're out of power. Now that they're in power since 2017, they have contributed to the national debt. And again, $20 million based on this new bill, if it's passed the way it is, over the next 10 years. Now they're now attacking the Central Budget Office that is a bipartisan group that came up with these numbers. They're now saying that these guys are all Democrats or they're Democratic sympathizers and the numbers aren't true. Elon Musk, today's his last day. I think there's going to be a press conference about it. He said that this big, beautiful bill undermines the work that Doge has done in the last 120 days. He said that a bill can be either beautiful or big, but it can't be both. He obviously doesn't agree with all the spending that's in the bills. The U.S. stock market, where we are after these tariffs, is now the lowest compared to the rest of the world's markets. The United States has only collected $16 billion so far in tariffs, which is 75% lower than was forecasted on April 2nd when it was called Liberation Day. And what is happening is these countries are skirting the tariffs. They're shipping them to Canada and to Mexico, which right now we know are not being tariffed. Trump said today that they've already collected trillions and trillions of dollars in tariffs. That is 100% false. They've collected a total of $16 billion. There's issues now that they're getting around these tariffs by putting them in bonded warehouses, and they're also stripping out the service costs of making a good into the final product of the good. So we shall see how these tariffs work. A couple days ago, the International Tariff Court, which had a Trump appointee, a Bush appointee, and Obama appointee, ruled that Trump could not do these tariffs, that they had to originate in Congress. Another district court, United States District Court judge, also put an injunction in place on them, but an appellate court said that the tariffs can continue. I do agree with what Trump is doing with Harvard on some of the Chinese students, that if they are a member of the Communist Party and they're studying certain things and going back to China, that maybe we should limit their ability to go to not only Harvard, but other United States universities. 28% of Harvard's student body is international students. I don't like international students coming to our country, getting our knowledge and taking it back to their countries. Now, they could be taking back some of the democratic ideals that we believe in, so it's not all bad, but I absolutely agree. Last year, opioid deaths dropped 27%. Let me say that again, 27%. Yet President Trump wants to cut $56 million to the department that distributes Narcan medicine, that if you're in an overdose situation from opioids, you get Narcan through your nose and you could live. I honestly believe that that is a bad cut, and that if we are getting these opioid deaths and saving people from that, that's a worthy thing. We saw last week in Liverpool, England, after Liverpool won the Premiership title, that some man drove his minivan through the crowd and a couple of people were killed and 35 injured. Why do people do that? I don't understand why people who want to prove a point want to kill innocent people, people that are just celebrating a win by a sporting event. Um, Last week, North Korea, Kim Jong-un was celebrating the christening of a new battleship, and it sunk. It was extremely embarrassing. And can you imagine who was responsible for that? Whether it was the captain or the people who built the ship or who were to launch it. I don't think they're alive today. I don't think their families are alive today, or if they're alive, they're hanging by their fingernails. I think that Israel is going to end up bombing Iran before a nuclear deal is cut. Trump desperately wants to cut a nuclear deal with Iran. I think Putin is absolutely playing Trump. And the answer isn't, well, we're just going to give up and let them fight it out. I think if the United States and Europe doesn't support Ukraine, then Putin's going to take further imperial acts, go after Poland, go after Finland to expand the footprint of Russia to equal what it was during the Soviet Union. Putin is absolutely humiliating Trump. Trump now has given him 2 weeks. Trump is a great guy for announcing, oh, we're not going to yield on the China tariffs at all, when it was 145%. And then he cut it back, we know, back to 30%. Trump is great for announcing something and saying it's definitive. And then a week later, when he puts his finger in the wind and people bark in his ear, he changes it. And you heard this week that he now has a nickname from Wall Street called Taco, which is Trump always changes his mind. Taco is awesome. He was asked about it. He got obviously pissed off and embarrassed, and he humiliates anybody that asks a question that he disagrees with. They become fake news, or they're a jerk, or they're an idiot. Trump is talking about 50% tariffs on the EU, yet he's given them until I think July 9th to negotiate. He's going to hopefully cut a deal with them. We heard yesterday from the Treasury Secretary that China is not negotiating in good faith, even though there's the reprieve, I think, for 45 days. China always wants to, like Russia, act like they're going to do something and they're not. He said that he thinks it's going to take a conversation between President Trump and Chairman Xi for China to get this resolved. Trump is announcing that he thinks that there's more agreements that are coming down the pike that they're close to getting. Everyone knows that the agreement that was reached with England was only a 1-year agreement. It doesn't have a lot of teeth. So that's the interesting thing. Elon Musk is pulling back. I think he's recognizing how much his brand has hurt himself, and the brand has hurt his companies. He's realizing that politics is a blood sport, and that at the end of the day, for him, it's about money. So that's something interesting that took place. Putin, I think, is really going crazy. I do agree with Trump. The fact that he wants to talk peace and then bombs Kyiv all week long with some of the worst bombardments from drones and surface-to-air missiles, I think is a real problem. I think he's playing Trump. I don't think he wants peace. I don't think he can afford a peace because of what has happened to the Russian economy and how many people they've lost and gotten killed. I don't think it's 5,000 troops a week or a day, as Trump is saying, but it's certainly a lot of human life has been killed. I think that the United States is going to have to enact serious sanctions against Russia. The Knicks won last night, and so now the series is 3-2 against Indiana. There'll be another game tomorrow night, Saturday night. OKC has already won their series against Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is a good player, but OKC is a real team. I think no matter if the Knicks play OKC or Indiana, I think OKC is going to win it. Charlie Woods, who is Tiger's son, won his first tournament. It's a tailor-made tournament. He shot a 66 on the final round. So I don't think he's ever going to be as great as Tiger, but good for him for winning. Shohei Ohtani is just unbelievable. If you watch the Dodgers, he's literally hitting a home run almost every game in the past week. He is starting to practice pitching at batting practice, and they're going to pitch him. He is the Babe Ruth of our generation. I also think that Aaron Judge is equally as close to being equally as good as Ohtani. His average dipped below 400. He's hitting amazing. He's a clutch hitter. What he hasn't done is play well really in the playoffs. So that's that. Let's talk about the questions. I already gave you my thoughts on the Chrisley pardons. I don't agree with them, but every president does these kind of pardons. On the Stephen Smith matter, we're going to have a walkathon on July 12th in Hampton County. Renee and I are going to walk. It's 1.3 miles each way. We're going to walk from the cemetery to where he got murdered. I'm going to speak at the function at the walkathon. We're going to have shirts and some entertainment, possibly, definitely some refreshments. The Nancy Mace matter is just getting weirder and weirder. The fact that she has her staff create false accounts to give her approval from fake bots is unbelievable to me. She is starting to look comedic in what she's alleging. Obviously, she's saying that there was women who were gang raped and everything else. But my client is not involved, Brian Musgrove, in any of the new lawsuits, and affidavits have been given by some people who have said some pretty strong things. And obviously there was a deposition given by Wesley Donahue, her former campaign manager or spokesman, who said things that Nancy talks about sex a lot, and that there were impressions that he got that people were being blackmailed. The P. Diddy trial, I don't think there's going to be a mistrial. A mistrial only will be granted if something is so prejudicial that P. Diddy cannot get a fair trial. I think he's getting a fair trial. I think that the testimony by Mia and Capricorn Clark were effective. I again think that he is going to be convicted. I think they're ultimately going to tie this together to show that it was a RICO enterprise. Brian Kohlberger trial, what are the defense's legal grounds for requesting a trial delay? And how much media coverage like Dateline affect a fair trial? What they're saying is that right now there's just such a media frenzy that he does not have the ability to get a fair trial, meaning he can't find a jury of his peers that would look at the evidence objectively. I guess they're working to the question to remove the death penalty from consideration before the trial begins. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to try to humanize him more. They also said they were going to try to show who else killed the college students. I think that's a burden they should not take. What are the constitutional implications of a president threatening to withhold federal funds from a state over school sport policies? I don't think they have a basis to do that. Once Congress allocates these funds, I think they have to be given to the state. I think that there's going to be an injunction issued, or the funds are ultimately going to be released. But I do agree with him. Again, I do agree that men who transgender into women should not be competing in female sports. It's simply not fair. What type of legal disputes are surfacing as sports leagues shift more content to streaming platforms? That is interesting that people have to pay to see these sports things. For me, I'm very disappointed in the amount of gambling that is being promoted as games are going on. I think that's a real problem. I think that players are either getting involving in gambling or having surrogates gamble for them. I think there's antitrust issues, that they have these exemptions from Congress. And if they keep doing these things about not properly testing, drug testing, or selectively testing certain people, they may end up losing their antitrust. I want to acknowledge some of the people who are listening. Joe Kivlin says Interstellar Echoes is a Pink Floyd cover band that are playing tonight at the Ice House behind my offices in Lexington, South Carolina. I like Pink Floyd, but I don't like their lead singer, who is an absolute anti-Semite and a Nazi sympathizer. Sunny Day says previous president's pardons pale in comparison to Trump's abuse of power. All he is doing is dismantling the rule of law, and it's very sad and sickening to me. I tend to agree, and I think you're going to see tons and tons of more pardons over the next 4 years. Remember, we're only 130 days into, 120 days into his administration. So USC Jan says taco stands for Trump always chickens out. Sunny Day says, how can we fight against people like Nancy Mace? How do we fight? We vote them out of office. When it's time for her to come up for re-election as a House member or as a gubernatorial candidate, we vote against her. That's the only way you can get rid of vermin like that. She is a hot mess, Casey Odell. I agree. Sunny Day says we should check out the Donna Adelson trial and the recent motion regarding the ex parte allegation and other allegations that lawyers were using cell phones for the defendant to talk with husband to bypass. That is really interesting. The Donna Adelson trial is the husband and wife who are alleged to have participated in the killing of their son-in-law, who was very religious and was shielding the grandchildren from them. They lived in Miami, Donna and her husband. You remember when they were being charged, they were trying to flee the country to go to the Philippines. There was even allegations in the Alex Murdaugh trial that Alex was calling Jim Griffin's office, who then would patch in Buster. Don't know if that was true or not, but that was put out in the paper. Lawyers cannot do that. They can't act as a conduit for their clients to be able to talk to members without it being recorded and saying that it was an attorney-client privilege conversation. So with that said, everybody have a great weekend. Looking forward to talking with you next week. Sorry it wasn't so long, but just not a lot to talk about. Everybody have a great week.